Annie Duke for ProPlayLive. I'm playing $1 and $2 blind, no limit, cash game on ultimatebet. Now, okay, Schenkel here raised 7. I have ace king, and in position with this hand, if I was over here, I might just flat call him, try to hit and not overcommit. But out of position, I don't really like to flat call because I'm going to have to act first for the rest of the hand, so it's going to be hard for me to make a decision. So I'm actually just going to re-raise the pot. If I'm going to play out of position, I want to have the lead. And frankly, I'm perfectly happy to win with ace high here. Right. I mean, I don't get too caught up in the fact that I have ace king. It's like, yes, I have ace king, but I also have no pair. If I don't improve the hand, I'm not going to be sure if the hand's good. And I'm going to have to act first, which is a huge disadvantage. So picking up the pot right there is never a bad thing. In position, I might re-raise and I might gamble a little more and flat call. And that really comes down to how aggressive do I think the player is? How much pressure are they going to put on me if I leave the lead with them? Actually, interestingly enough, the less aggressive the player, the more likely I am to just go ahead and call. Because against aggressive players, I really like to punish the fact that they're overactive at the table, and I'll tend to just take those pots right away, particularly with a hand like ace-king, because it depends on what your feel of the table is. In a tournament, I'm much more likely to re-raise with those hands. In a cash game, I'm much more likely to flat call and just try to pick money up later. Because the reason why is that in a cash game, it's harder to win before the flop. Because people are more likely to call you before the flop. So when you talk about the percentage that you need to win, if you have a hand like ace-king and you choose to re-raise, you need to be winning that re-raise 50% of the time to make the re-raise itself really profitable. I feel like in a tournament, for sure. And in a tournament, you really just want to be collecting chips at low risk because your chips are finite. So gambling in a tournament makes less sense because you can't rebuy and punish people for all the image plays that you've set up. Whereas in a cash game, you get a lot more out of playing a little bit more with the long-term view in mind. Okay, so now here's the difference. So with 2 7s in a tournament, I might re-raise here. But here I'm actually just going to flat call. I have position on this guy, so I'm willing to take a little bit more of a gamble. Now, I'm not going to get in trouble here with just the 7 of diamonds. Now, they all check to me, and so I'm actually going to take the bet at the pot. But again, I'm going to make it a very small bet. I'm going to bet 12. I'm pretty sure I don't have the best hand right now, but this is also a board that might be bad for someone who just has a queen, for example, with no diamond in their hand. And so I'm going to let, again, the pot lay me this big price for just picking it up. Again, I'm in this situation where I've got ace-king offsuit out of position. I'm going to raise it, and particularly here, it's a great raise because it's going to look squeezy. So a squeeze play is when it goes raise, call. This guy here is unlikely to be strong. And this guy has to worry about both of us. So this guy is going to fold a lot of strong hands, and this guy probably isn't strong in the first place. So you're squeezing this guy out by the pressure of the two of us. And you already know this guy's probably pretty weak. So that's called a squeeze play. You can do that with some weaker hands. But here I actually have a good hand. So that's a great time to do a more squeezy play. And I've got a lot of pressure on myself for being out of position. And obviously, I'm just going with it now. If I go broke to this hand, I go broke to this hand. That's the whole reason why I played it. So it's 78. The pot has a little bit of texture on it, so I'm not going to bet only half, which in this case would be 40. I'm actually going to go a little higher and bet like 58. I just want to give the flush draw a little bit of a worse price. Once you get the person to be calling 3 to 1, you're already giving the flush draw a bad price. Now, you might scratch your head because I'm sure that you've heard that a flush draw with 2 to come is 2 to 1. But the problem is that if you think for 1 second I'm allowing that guy to see another card after the turn, you're out of your mind. So one mistake that people make.
4 to 1 after the flop, isn't it?
4 to 1 with 1 to come. People know that a flush draw is 2 to 1 with 2 to come. So when they're on the flop, they think about the flush draw as 2 to 1. But it's not. It's only the case if you know you're seeing 2 cards, right? So the problem is that if you're against somebody who's going to bet the turn, you have to treat it as a 4 to 1 shot. Okay, so I'm going to raise this. So this is really important. So people think that raising on the flop is the way to price the flush draw out. The problem with raising on the flop is that very often you end up where now the money's just in the pot. And that's exactly when you're allowing your opponent on each subsequent bet to be getting the right price. Because what happens is that you raise, and now you're generally going to be raising the pot. You're letting them get 2 to 1. Now you're scared of whatever they have, and maybe the turn gets checked. Or you raise, and now they re-raise the pot, and you call that. They've gotten 2 to 1 twice now. And now they're going to get to see both cards. So that's exactly when you let the flush gamble. Now, it's high variance play for the flush because they're really only getting their money back on the play. But that's when you let them not be losing money, right? If instead you just call, and now you bet the turn again, and they call, and each time you're making sure that at best they're getting 3-1, they're taking 3-1 on a 4-1 shot twice. So they're actually losing 25% of their money twice instead of breaking even to see both cards and getting to gamble. It's a really important concept that people don't realize, is that they think they have to price that flush draw out right on the flop. Well, you do with your initial bet, but you don't have to get in some kind of raising word where they're getting 2-1, then 2-1, then 2-1, then 2-1. Boom, they get to see two cards. It's not such a bad play for them. Right? And they get all the folding equity with it and all of this other stuff that causes you to guess and might get you to fold the best hand in the first place. So that's one reason why, like if I have ace queen and the board comes queen, 8, 3, 2 hearts, and someone bets into me, I just flat call. And most people will raise there, but when you raise, you're going to give your opponent 2-1 back, and they're probably going to get to see two cards. At 2-1, I just flat call because he's already bet himself out of the price, right? So people tend to bet the whole pot. Let's say in this game, there's $10 in the pot. He bets $10. He just set his price at even money for himself with a flush draw. Now, even with my call, he's only getting 2-1, and he is not seeing the next card for free. So he is now at 2-1, losing 50% of his money to see the next card. On the next card, I'm going to bet him again, and I'm going to probably bet 60 to 70% of the pot, right? He's getting like 2.5 to 1 now. He's getting like 2.5 to 1. He's another 4-1 shot. He just lost money again. As opposed to taking the line of play where I just raise on the flop, and now I let him get his 2-1 to see two cards, which is much worse. So that's one thing that you need to think about, is that sometimes people have already given themselves a bad price.